All right, so I was asking some questions to some people on Instagram about like the rut and stuff, and just I love seeing like where I get say 100 messages coming back and seeing the trends and questions. One big one was about the rut specifically is like what you consider a rut funnel and like where you want to sit. Like thinking of November specifically, like what do you consider a place that you want to sit all day that you would consider like a funnel for the deer? Does it, is that necessarily like where terrain is pinching them down or vegetation, or is it none of that and it's just something else? I see all you guys kind of stewing around here thinking, does anybody have something that comes to mind?
Terrain is a big one for me. Everybody knows saddles, and that is a travel area. But you get these subtle saddles that maybe aren't so obvious and or not even really that wide. If it's going from one valley and transition into another valley over the top, that to me it has been a one of the target spots, I guess, that I look at. Put boots on the ground, whether you roll it out or end up sitting there. You have to look at it and see what signs there, I guess. And then the creek bottoms, which are all difficult to hunt. You got to play the thermals. You got to play depending on how sharp the hillside is or how wide the valley is, what you can get away with. But I do like my bottoms. What
do you think about the bottoms? Like just anywhere in the creek bottom, or why?
I'm looking where different valleys meet. A hub.
Yeah.
And there's usually a community scrape in that area, typically. Pretty much where you find a community scrape is their travel area, whether it's in the bottom or up top or wherever it is. If you got a scrape that's being worked every year and good sized licking branches busted off or multiple scrapes within a 10-yard area, then you definitely know that's a travel zone. And set up off of that if you can't actually hunt that particular one because of the wind direction. But playing off of that and looking for the sign leading into it, out of it, whatever it may be. But terrain features is a big one, and where the does are, the other part of it. I'm talking with the scrapes is leading up to the rut, which they still check them throughout when they're on lockdown and doing the mating breeding. But it seems like that's the transition areas or going where the does are, where the does are. That's going to attract the bucks. So, just take a note of your does throughout the summer and the fall and, concentrating on that.
Yeah. What about you, Mason? Do you pay attention to terrain or any sort of vegetation as far as like your rut setups?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of the stuff I look at is pretty similar to what he just said. The one setup I really like during the rut too, especially like when you think they're chasing, is getting on the downwind side of a doe bedding area. Like say there, where some does are bedding in a clear cut.
Yeah.
If you can get on the downwind side of that where it meets the edge of a steep hill or something, that's just like a classic spot. I always feel good about spending the whole day in.
Mm-hmm, that makes sense.
Yeah. What about you, John?
Well, I was thinking about up here, everything Joe kind of talks about, but also now that, man, there's not as much terrain in some of these areas. There's starting to be a lot of roads. I'm finding areas in between roads, like a seam where you got a road here, then maybe another oil well road, 100 yards or so, where the deer might want to sneak right through there, and then access is a issue. You can even be laying there to where any vehicle comes up the road, he knows, so you might have to park a little ways down the road. But if you got two roads, the way these oil well roads are here, you might just have to get in between one where you feel like
So it's like a road funnel. Like you almost would think that'd be like the same thing as if you had like a cut and a creek, and you have a side hill. It's like it's kind of acts as the same thing.
Yeah. Pressure funnel.
Yeah, it's a pressure.
Yeah. So I kind of look at them as like a seam, like two things meet. Here's this road here, and in between. But also a place I'm looking at in Ohio, I think I'm onto a good deer is just in between two, kind of what they were saying, but close to two bedding doe areas, to where he can an older, more lazy deer that is really not lazy, but just smart and efficient. To where this one area I'm hunting, it's kind of like I feel like he's hanging out here, and he got a thicket down in here and one here, and there's feed out on a point to where I could just see him just like this triangle, and just being close to all them does without having to go.
The transition areas.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think it definitely comes down to, for me, depending on the area, whether it's a spot that has a lot of terrain or doesn't, because those are two completely different animals. And I think areas that don't have a lot of terrain are honestly kind of harder as far as like finding what those funnels are. Like if I'm going to a place where I don't know, if I'm going out of state and I don't have a whole lot of experience, I'm not 100% sure where the does are bedding. Like I obviously want to find them when I get there, but what I'm marking on Spartan Forge and I'm looking for are those traditional, like terrain funnels to start. And then I overlay the map with with the trees on to see if there's like what Mason talked about, say a side hill that pinches against a clear cut, or hemlocks or something that gives like that breakup in all of that stuff. But in areas that I know well, personally, I try to find the does first, and now I look at it from more of a micro level of like, what's the best path from point A to point B where they feel safe? And it might be just this little ditch that kind of runs through and runs, between these areas, or the edge of a cut. And then, more so I'm finding with the cuts, it's like, I need to be able to shoot to the interior of that thick stuff versus just on the edge. Like, and there's always a lot of times there stands on the edge already. You got to think a little bit outside the box and how you can, get in there and be able to access it. But I've found for me, I like benches a lot that I can find a good bench that's in between something, at the top of a draw like that. That to me is like especially you get to a place that has like some real good terrain differentiators there, and you got a steep draw that's coming up and a trail around the top, like a ring, a trail that goes over it. Man, I love sitting those and that's a spot for me that I don't even care to be there first thing in the morning. That's like a middle of the day because they're cruising between doe bedding areas. There's not normally deer laying there unless it's thick and choked with mountain laurel or something. Then it might be a bedding area too, but most of the time that's kind of like, that's a really good all day spot. I'm thinking of how they're getting from, point A to point B, so to speak. And, that's kind of how I look at those places. And then like the creek bottoms, just like you said, and obviously I learned that from you, is like those places where you find those scrapes and it just has things that all meet at one spot, and, and honestly, another area that I would consider a funnel that a lot of time has to do with terrain and vegetation, but sometimes it doesn't, is just finding area where there's a lot of trails that intersect. And sometimes it doesn't make a whole lot of sense from like, it's not this giant terrain feature that just funnels them down. It's just like, there's a lot of doe trails that kind of come across here, and it's, that seems like a good place for a buck to scent check if he's looking for a hot doe. And just, setting up on those types of things, especially in the subtle terrain areas where there's not a whole lot of steep ridges and hills like that. To me, it's like, that's kind of a no-brainer. And a lot of times that's in the center of a clear cut even. It's like they're crossing, because they don't just always run the outside edge around the outside of the cut. They're like, I need to get over there. I'm just going to go right through it, and follow some logging roads or trails or whatever. That's what I try to think about when I'm looking for these spots. And I mean, like, for as long as I've hunted, I'm sure you guys are in the same boat. Like coming into this year, I don't have one spot that I'm like, man, I can't wait to sit there for 5 days. Like I don't have that right now. And it's like, I'm still, even though I have all these spots, but I need to see what it's looking like at that time of year to, make that decision and go.
Yeah, you got to get that feeling.
You got to get that. Yeah, you got to get that feeling.